10 years ago, he changed the face of Halloween. Now he's back to face off against an elementary schooler. Hello, welcome to Nate Flicks. I am Nate, you are you, and we've arrived at our fourth destination along the road to Halloween Kills. That is what I'm calling this new review series where I look at each entry in my most beloved movie franchise, Halloween. And this is a real fan favorite. When you look at Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, this was a course correction. This was Moustapha Akkad telling folks that, hey, we need to quote unquote go back to the basics, that we need to make up for everything that transpired with Halloween 3, The Season of the Witch, because it left a real distaste in the fans' mouth. And there was a lot of vitriol spewed about that film, and it died at the box office. But the first two films were so lucrative. They were a cash cow. Let's get more of that, is what Moustapha Akkad is thinking. So, of course, we need to recapture the magic, the tension, the suspense, the voyeuristic quality and moody atmosphere of John Carpenter's Halloween from 1978. The thing that made all this possible. Sounds like a Herculean task, right? Imagine having to write that film. Then imagine only being given 11 days to do so. That's what happened to poor Alan B. McElroy, but I think he did a really commendable job. And obviously, you don't need me to tell you that, because this thing has withstood the test of time. And as I was saying, this is one of the most beloved sequels. A lot of folks tell you this is their favorite Halloween sequel. And I gotta tell you, there are some really unique qualities about this film when compared to the other Halloween films. We're looking at the other entries in this franchise and just other horror films in general. And I think one of the biggest reasons that I became such a strong proponent of this movie and it struck a chord with me is it was one of the first Halloween films I ever saw. It may in fact be the first. And I saw it as a young boy, as an elementary schooler, which set up a scenario in which I am seeing myself in this film. Because never before had I seen a serious horror movie, not one that was kind of placating or playing to a younger audience or to children, one that was going for real scares that were meant to thrill adolescents and those in adulthood, but cast such a young child at the center of everything. But that's what you get. You get Michael Myers' niece, you get Jamie Lloyd, portrayed to perfection by Danielle Harris. We have to shout her out and commend her for her efforts in this film. So many other movies that would otherwise be great have really been kind of bogged down and hampered by a poor performance from a wooden child actor, but that's not what we get. We get an all-time great child acting performance from Danielle Harris. So that's obviously why fans love her to this day and are always clamoring for her to come back. And I understand it. I'm a bit of a fanboy myself because her performance in this film means so much to my fandom of this franchise, because I saw a bit of myself in young Jamie Lloyd. I felt as if I was in her shoes and I knew what it would be like to take on evil, to have the boogeyman set his sights on you, to chase you all throughout your neighborhood. So then I would have to walk to the bus stop on an autumn day and the leaves are falling and I'm hearing crunching in the leaves behind me as I walk down the road. I'm looking over my shoulder. I'm expecting to see Michael Myers, because this movie set that in my mind. It created a scenario to which I would be the person being pursued. It wasn't like the other horror movies I saw, to where people who were teenagers, teenage girls, teenage boys, they were the people that the killer is fawning after or tracking. No, this movie, a child is there, and that just raises the stakes. It raises the peril, and it's such a wonderful plot device. I love it, and it was a way to make things fresh and new, because we have to go back to the basics, as Moustapha Akkad said, but let's do things a little bit differently. Let's adjust the formula a tad. And so we do that by not focusing on another Laurie Strode stand-in. Instead, we get her descendant, we get her daughter, and she's very young. I just think that's such a captivating, awesome little aspect of this film. And right away, Halloween 4 tells you that it does understand what it needs to be and what fans love about the franchise. In my past video where I really took to task Halloween 3, The Season of the Witch, I had some kind of mean things to say about that film. Meat Hook Productions, I believe it is. I'm sorry if I'm getting the name wrong. I actually commented on that video a few different times. It's telling me that they think that movie does Halloween atmosphere better than any of the other sequels. And they capture that, to which I really disagree. To me, Halloween 3 Season of the Witch feels like a very summery film in which people are going trick-or-treating. I don't think it feels like autumn or October. Now, you can't say that about Halloween 4. I think it boasts some of the best Halloween October atmosphere. It really gives you the vibes, and right off the bat, you get this really crisp, autumn feel. It feels like harvest time. As you're seeing scarecrows, you're seeing barns, you're seeing pumpkins. You do feel like you're on the country rural outskirts of the suburbs of a town like Haddonfield, Illinois. They captured that beautifully, and they were making the most of their Salt Lake City, Utah setting. I love that they pivoted and they went away from California. And I think this film, this production really reaps the benefits. And then you have Alan Howarth composing this wonderful little score to where it sounds like kind of whispers and this wind that is howling as you're seeing all these harvesty images. And it really just builds and culminates in a wonderful feel that sets the tone for this movie. And you talk about setting tone. How about then when we cut to the sanitarium and we see this harbinger of doom leading us through the sanitarium and talking about all the dredges of society that are being housed there, and that all of society's worst nightmares, all the unpleasantries, all of the boogeymen that we could not, we're not equipped to handle, they are being stored there and hopefully held captive, never to be seen by the light of day ever again, until not just any boogeyman, the boogeyman, Michael Myers, receives orders for a transfer to Smith's Grove. And we see him being loaded into an ambulance. And as they're carting him outside on this dark, stormy night with flashing lights, so much great atmosphere. It's so awesome, so crisp, so lovely. You then, for the first time, hear the actual Halloween score. And that's a perfect implementation of the score. Way to give you those goosebumps, way to set the chill down your spine. I'm glad that he held off. I'm glad that Howarth knew, hey, don't pump this right in. Don't do it on the credits. That's what fans are expecting. We'll do something else that feels like autumn and feels like October and feels creepy and gets you going, gets you ready to watch a Halloween film. But people will be waiting for that score. Sometimes delayed gratification is the best type of gratification, and I think it works so nicely here. But of course, we need to figure out why Michael's going to get back in action, and we have to go off of the final events of Halloween 2, where last we saw him, he was on fire, and he'd been shot another 6 times, and then 2 more times, 1 in each eye, so he's been shot 14 times. We have to try to explain what he's doing, right? How is he still in motion? Well, I think they're actually quite intelligent to not explain that, to sidestep that, and just kind of let your mind do whatever legwork it needs to do, or to just simply let it slip and be like, you know what, I wanted more Michael Myers, and this is what it has to happen. This is what has to go down in order for that to be possible. Then fine, I am on board. Because Halloween 2, that was supposed to be a decisive ending. He's not supposed to get up ever again after that. That was supposed to be it. They came up with a way to be like, nope, the boogeyman is dead. Evil has been triumphed over. Laurie Strode can go on with the rest of her life. But that's not what us fans wanted, right? We were hungry for so much more. So there has to be more. And I will go ahead and give credit to the writer, Alan McElroy, because he wanted the opening originally to show the explosion within the hospital and you to see Dr. Loomis be blown through a wall by the explosion, but to see him being, safe from the fire. And that's why he'd be able to survive and go on into Halloween 4. So, he made an effort, and I think that would have worked and that would have been fine. However, it may have hampered the pacing. And now we get this nice harvesty opening and we get the stuff in the sanitarium, and it's also nice and marries so well, and it just works. It meshes and it sets that atmosphere, sets the tone, all those things I've already talked about. So I don't think we needed that. I kind of like that we're just going, you know what? We wanted this movie, so logic be damned. Let's go ahead and proceed. I'm with you. I'm on board. Just don't do anything that's going to make me go, oh, y'all shouldn't have done this. And I got to say, I don't think this movie really does any of that. I don't think it does anything that spits in the face of the original or the face of Halloween 2. We go, oh, he should have just stayed dead. I can understand if you're like, the best timeline is Halloween 1 to Halloween 2. I could get on board with that, but I am glad that the franchise continued and we have more films to talk about on the road to Halloween Kills. We have more films to dissect and discuss, and Halloween 4 boasts so many wonderful aspects. So I'm glad it continued, and I'm glad they didn't get bogged down in the details, because that's where the devil resides, and we just continued. But of course, in Halloween 2, we now know that he's siblings to Laurie, and that is his biggest motivation. Apparently, Michael Myers just really hates his freaking family. So when he's in the ambulance and he hears that Laurie had a daughter and that he has a niece and Jamie Lloyd, you see that hand close up, and now he's on the rampage. And again, you want to talk about setting tone? How about Michael Myers driving his thumb right through the skull of a guy? There you go. That's also the type of Michael Myers we're getting. There's no argument anymore about whether he is human or supernatural. Halloween 4, Return of Michael Myers is without a doubt a supernatural force of evil. And you will see that throughout this film in the way he operates and the way he's able to kill, the fashion of the kills, the way he systematically destroys this town and lays waste to everything, and the way that he's plotting and just taking things down in a sequence that kind of seems to be part of this evil master plan and leaving everybody vulnerable. The way he just pops up seemingly out of nowhere to where he couldn't cover ground otherwise. And the only way you can really explain it is to be like, well, hey, he's the boogeyman. He's the shape. He is evil personified. And so this movie does really play with that. And so I think if you're going to be bothered by anything, it's going to be just exactly that. They're like, how did Michael get there? That's the biggest problem, I think, with Halloween 4 is how did Michael get there? Well, that and why does Michael look like that? Because the mask in this film is quite atrocious. He kind of just looks like a chubby, weird, pale, pallid pedophile. And that is really, a major drawback because Michael doesn't look right. The mask is terrible. In one scene, they don't even have a finished mask. There's a school scene in which Michael comes out with a pink face and whitish blonde hair. He's wearing an unfinished mask. How does that happen? And, that really is such a detriment to the film. And it's such a bad mark on the director, on everybody involved. But I digress. Let's go back to talking about the events of the film and the strong suits. You see that ambulance attack, and we now know what type of man or not so man, supernatural force Michael Myers is going to be in this film and what he's capable of, what type of kills you're going to get, how grisly this film could be in comparison to the first film. And then we cut and we see what's going on with the niece of Laurie Strode. We find out she has died and now her daughter belongs to this foster family. She has an older sister and Rachel is instantly very interesting. It starts off a little bit gray. She feels like a real actual teenager because she's not completely bad. She's not completely good. She's not completely like, oh, I hate Jamie. I never wanted to be a sister. Why do we have to take on this little girl? I'm a brat, blah, blah, blah. It's all about me. I'm trying to live my high school years. I hate this. Why is life so unfair? No, we've all seen movies where they would do that type of thing. They would take that angle with a teenage protagonist, but good on them for not doing that. But they also don't go, too heavy-handed, making her too likable. It's almost like a little Disney princess who just has the biggest heart in the world and is just way too welcoming. She's like, you know what? Boys be damned. High school career be damned. I'm ready to be a big sister for the first time in my life to this complete stranger. That's fine. No, she's kind of mixed on it. She has a big heart and, she has a soft spot for Jamie and she's sympathetic to what's happened in Jamie's life, but also she's at a pivotal time in her own high school career and she has her own wants. She has her eyes set on boys and life after high school. And, she's got all her own hormones, all these things going on. So played very well by Ellie Cornell. And I'm so glad they cast Ellie Cornell because Mustafa Akkad originally did not want her. And so I'm afraid if he got his own selection, we would have ended up with a protagonist that felt way more generic and way more true to the other slasher protagonists, where it's just some ditzy, dolled up, blonde bombshell, and that just doesn't fit. I like that we got somebody that feels like a real Haddonfield suburbanite, a real honest, down-to-earth, real girl. And Ellie Cornell plays that and exudes that to perfection. And so I like that we get that. I like that she's kind of mixed and she has a big heart, but she has her own wants. And she actually gets an arc. She may have one of the biggest arcs in all of Halloween. It all happens within the events of one film, where we see her go from the kind of begrudging sister to really sacrificing and putting her life on the line to save Jamie and loving Jamie and to having this really earnest, heartfelt connection. And she's such a likable final girl. So if you ask me, I think Rachel is one of the best characters in the Halloween franchise. And her relationship with Jamie is just really interesting. And like I said, it hits you in the feels and it just works. They have a wonderful charisma and a wonderful chemistry. And so I love the Jamie Lloyd character. I love Rachel. And I think they're two of the best final girls in the entire franchise. And on any given day, I might tell you that I enjoy watching Michael Myers stalk after Rachel and her very young sister more than I like him coming after, Laurie Strode for the 18th time. But hey, that's just me. From there, we set up this sort of connection between niece and uncle. We can tell that something is going on here and that Jamie feels some sort of supernatural tie to her uncle. And that maybe, possibly, whatever spellbound, curse, horror, evil, whatever you want to call it, that drove Michael to pick up a knife when he was 6 years old and to go stab his sister, that some of that may be afoot here with young Jamie because she's seen Michael when he's not actually there. The lightning flashes and he sits up, and I love that shot. That's one of the best moments in the film. That's one of my favorite little clips in all of the franchise. Wonderful stuff. And then I also love her seeing him and then her going to pieces. She's crying in the closet. The family comes in. Wonderful performance by the young Danielle Harris. Really great cinematography in the scene. Great mood, great horrorscapes, wonderful stuff. But that connection, that becomes really important because the next day, poor Jamie's in school. She's being bullied. It feels like a callback to Tommy Doyle in 1978. And they're chanting the thing about the boogeyman and he's going to get you, all this type of stuff. It feels very much like that. So wonderful callbacks. And this movie does have a fair bit of homages, all of them carried out very well. You have that moment there where it feels like Tommy Doyle. You have young Jamie then going to the hardware store and she can pick any costume and which one calls to her, which one beckons to her. It is, of course, the clown getup, the clown costume, just like the one her uncle adorned when he killed his sister. Now, I alluded to Michael being a very more systematic kind of masterminding killer in this film. And what I mean by that is there's a real progression here. We see him like almost on a checklist where he's like, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do this, and this will make things the sheerest, nicest little route to victory for me. So first, I need to attain the right look, So I got to go kill a mechanic. I got to get my coveralls. I got to go down to the hardware store. Got to get me a mask. And that's what he does. And he goes, you know what? Let's probably take out the power grid because, I want to do my best work when it's dark out. So let's make sure that if people are going to have any light, that they just have candlelight. Besides, that's when I look my best. Is when I'm bathed in shadow. You get some flickering flame on the mask. That's when I look my best. So let's go ahead and take out that power grid. Bucky be damned. And then after that, let's probably take care of the police station. I don't need them meddling and things. I'm going to have my hands full enough with Haddonfielders and teenagers and my niece. So I'm sure Loomis is out there kicking around somewhere. I can't get rid of that old fart. So yeah, we don't need any police. I'm going to go there and I'll take care of them. And that's what we're talking about. Michael it builds here, but it builds in a way that makes sense. Other Halloween films, it feels like he's just kind of killing at random. It's like, you got my way, so I'm going to kill you. Or sometimes not even my way, because Michael will be at and let's say Halloween 6, for example. I was watching that the other day, and I noticed that Michael is back home in the Myers house. He has a kill, and then he walks half a mile to kill Barry Sims, string him up in the house, or string him up in a tree, and then walk back home another half mile so he can kill again there. And it's just random. This one, he has an MO. And there's a reason for what he's doing, and he is on a collision course with his niece, but that collision course has been routed, and it has been masterminded, and there's a very deliberate path. And I love that kind of take on Michael. I think that's really compelling and interesting, and it kind of lends credence to how much of a threat Michael is, and it kind of supposes he has a certain level of intelligence in his malevolence. Now, it's worth noting that Loomis is a little bit different, too. It's not just Michael who's doing things a little bit differently and has a new MO. Loomis is a little bit more unhinged here. We have seen that he is at wit's end and he's not taking any chances. He was a little bit subdued in Halloween 1978 and Halloween 2. He's not taking any chances. He doesn't have time for any nonsense. There's a moment where he's in a guy's office trying to warn him what's going on, and he just cuts the guy off. He leaves. He's telling Bo Starr's character, Sheriff Meeker, he's giving him the business to tell him how it's going to be, and he's not suffering any fools. And I love that. And some people talk about, that's so much Philippe. He was so this way, and now he's this way. But you might be that way too. If you spent 15 years studying pure evil and doing everything you could to make sure he stayed locked up forever, and then he gets out, nobody wants to help you out. Nobody wants to hear you out and listen. And so he kills a bunch of teenagers, and ultimately you feel like you're going to sacrifice yourself. After having to shoot this guy 12 times, and then seeing another girl shoot him twice, one in each eye, sitting there with bloody eyes, and you light him on fire. You set up an explosion, and you're willing to die just to thwart this man, and he's still kicking. So yeah, you're not going to suffer any fools. You're going to be a bit agitated. You're going to be a bit unhinged. You're going to be yelling at folks. You're going to be sporadic. And that's why when you finally meet somebody who's a common soul and understands you, and Reverend Sayer, who's out here talking about the end times and, damnation and tracking evil and all this stuff, you can kind of smirk yourself because, yeah, this scene, it's a little campy, it's a little goofy, it's a little weird, but I actually like Reverend Sayer. I love that little moment. I think it's good to see Dr. Loomis kind of having fun and seeing Donald Pleasance kind of relish in the role there. I love that exchange, and it really does set up what we're saying Michael is here. He's something more than just human, that he is damnation personified, that he is evil walking, and I love that. We don't necessarily need that. I think we get it, but it's a nice way to hammer it home, and it just really does feel all the more like a Halloween film because of that, because you need those really nice kind of flowery moments. You need really nice boisterous dialogue that really does set up everything and expands upon it and adds to the mythos and legend of the shape and this universe we are living in. And one more big strong suit of this film, I do believe, is that, it's a little bit more deliberately paced. We have time for Michael to have this masterminded plot where he's going around. We have time to build characters and flesh them out, to watch their dynamic, to see their relationship, to get on board with them and to actually root for them and care for them. So they're not just slasher fodder. They're not just corpses that we move on from and never think about again. That they actually have all sorts of different relationships. We have a love triangle. We have a begrudging sister. We have all these different things going on. And it makes you get interested. It makes you get involved. You're not just there going, cut somebody up. No, you actually care. And you're seeing Michael kind of stalk around. You don't know where he's going to be next. And that's kind of understanding what Halloween is about. And then everything is shot well in this neighborhood to actually just feel like small town America. It feels like middle America. And everything has that really nice, crisp blue lighting to where it gives you a little bit of a chill. And it gives you the right vibe. It sets up the right atmosphere. So I love that because that is what I'm talking about. We said get back to the basics. That's what they needed to understand. And that's what you got to bring with Halloween. And later sequels don't do that. We go to the next film. It's in broad daylight all the time. The lighting is weird and it doesn't feel like a Halloween film. This does. This boasts some of the best atmosphere, and a lot of it has to do with the setting. It has to do with the lighting, and it has to do with all these different set designs that were thrown in there. And no better set design than when we finally catch up to these characters and Michael is now caught up to them as well, and we see them on the top of the roof. That scene where Jamie and Rachel have been flushed out of the house and they flee to the roof and Michael is pursuing them is wonderful, and it's tense, and the peril is just compounding with each shot. There's constant danger, and just more and more danger lurks, because it's like, oh, you're either going to fall off this roof and die, or you're going to get stabbed by Michael Myers, or you're going to get choked out as you try to string Jamie down the roof. All these different things could happen. Anything could go down. And they actually wanted to make things even more perilous. They wanted the roof to be on fire. In the original script by Alan B. McElroy, Meeker and Michael were supposed to have a confrontation in the basement that saw a fire break out. And that was going to be the reason that the girls went up to the roof, was because the fire was going to quickly just spread through the house upward, and they were going to have to rush out through the top. And then as they were being pursued by Michael, you would see the shingles in the roof on fire. But I actually don't think they need that. I think that this looks fantastic with the open sky above them. It feels like they're so high up, and it feels like the cold, chilly, crisp air of Halloween. And Michael looks great there. I don't need to see him in the firelight and all that. And it feels like you're on top of, a multi-level home. But instead, this little set was actually built specifically for this scene. This is like a 10, 15-foot roof that they made for all the stunt work. And they did wonderfully. I love all the practical effects in this movie. I love the TLC they put into getting things right. And they did great with all their stunt coordinating. I love this little sequence. I love the work they do with the back of the pickup truck in a little bit after this moment. That's what I'm saying. This movie has some of the best sequences in all of Halloween. That's some of the best stunt work. It has some of the best atmosphere. So these are things when you hear people talk about, hey, I just love Halloween 4, and they keep waxing poetic. If you don't understand it, these are the things that really grab people. It's having that young Jamie Lloyd character in danger. It's having a child in danger, but having a child also has this really touching relationship with their mother, having a child that's portrayed so well by a child actor, having Rachel who has a real fleshed out character arc and you sympathize with her and you feel for her, having other characters that actually are more than just fodder, that they have other interesting exchanges with other side characters, having the right atmosphere, having the right setting, having a Dr. Loomis that has his own arc and now feels a bit crazed and different and has a desperation about him, having a Michael that feels different but also still feels true, even if the look isn't quite right. If you don't understand the love for Halloween 4, I'm telling you, it's these things right there. And I mentioned the sequence with the truck. My only problem with that is that Michael climbs up from beneath the truck after the truck's been driving for a very long time. It's just like, what? And that's what I'm talking about. For me, that is the hardest pill to swallow with this movie, is that Michael is just popping up left and right. And there's really no way to explain it other than be like, hey, it's what the plot demands. And, Michael's damnation. He's evil. He's condemnation of mankind personified. So that's just how it's going to be. He's the boogeyman, man. He's the shape. He just kind of pops up places. And I don't like having to go along with that. But at least they make it worth it, right? At least they give you a payoff, because once he does kind of ascend the back of that truck's tailgate and he is in the back of that truck, it goes down, man. And it's entertaining and it's thrilling. And you're seeing him toss people out of the back of the truck. You're seeing him rip people's throats out. You're seeing him cling to the top of the truck and be swung around. You're seeing him get hit by Rachel and go flying, which I think we need to give credit to this movie, because people love the ending of H2O. But this movie did it first. This movie has a whole little moment take place first. And it sets that precedent. It got there first. And H2O, if anything, kind of ripped it off. And I think H2O does it better with seeing his head get lopped off. But seeing him get death by a fire squad is pretty awesome too. And seeing him go down in that well and everything. And of course, before that, we get the transference of evil, or whatever is going on with Michael Myers, whatever drives him, when Jamie goes over and touches his hand. I know a lot of people try to talk about, no, that's not what was happening here. There's no supernatural element like that. That's not what it was. Jamie just was feeling sympathy towards her uncle because her other blood kin are dead. No, that's not it. And the director will tell you as much.
The transfer from Michael to Jamie through the hand was very carefully thought out, and that she was going to then, the twist ending was going to be she had been, in a sense, possessed by Michael's spirit through the bloodline, and would come back at the epilogue of the movie.
I've always thought that was obvious. I think it's weird people would argue anything contradictory to this point, Because why else is she seeing Michael Myers in all these other places that other people aren't? How is he in the bedroom with her? That's not a nightmare. They established that she is awake. So I think it's very obvious she has some sort of like telekinetic or inter-cerebral thing going on with Michael Myers. There's some sort of supernatural connection between them. And so I think we see them touch hands. Yes, it is like a passing of the baton in a way. And of course, we see that with what happens when we get home and we think that we've had our climax and everything is okay now. We have made it to the finish line. Everybody is safe. No, they're not. What a wonderful conclusion to the film. That is how you do it. Horror movies are infamous for having one last, gotcha. And this movie has a wonderful one of those. And that we think it's all is fine. And you hear the water running. And you get this POV shot that I alluded to earlier, very much like the opening of Halloween 1978. And if you remember in Halloween 1978, it is a child that we are in the point of view of. And of course, we are here too because it is young Jamie Lloyd. And she's picking up scissors and she's attacking her mother. And then she's at the top of the stairs. It's a wonderful shot. I love the framing of the shot. I love the way it's lit. I love the way that they have the blood splatter all across young Jamie Lloyd. She's there in her little clown getup. Wonderful stuff. Chilling stuff. Spooky stuff. Mind-blowing stuff. And then poor, unhinged, just wits be gone Donald Pleasance, Dr. Loomis at the bottom of the steps, and the agony in his voice when he just is screaming in frustration, no, no. And he's got the gun up and he is willing to gun down a little girl because he understands that he's damned. Everybody is damned. You can't defeat evil. Just like in Halloween 1978 when he shot Michael off the balcony and you look over and he's gone and we hear his breathing and all the different locales we've seen him in throughout the film. He cannot be defeated. Evil cannot be completely thwarted. And that is a sentiment here at the end. And it leaves you shook. It leaves you thinking about it. It leaves you with something to talk about with your friends after watching the movie. I love it. I love that they went there. It takes some real balls to do that. And some people hate it. I could understand that if you think it's too much or you think it's silly. But I really do sincerely love it. And I have since I was a child. Because I talked about the immersion of watching another child go through the events of this film and take on the boogeyman. But to see a child against their own will, through some sort of supernatural perversion, kind of be corrupted and to attack their mother and to be standing there at the top of their stairs with bloody scissors as if she were Michael Myers. I thought that was gripping. I thought it was compelling, and it got me going. It made me want to see everything else that had to do with Halloween. So Halloween 4, very much to blame. Definitely the culprit for all this fervent fandom that I feel for this franchise, and I will forever hold this movie near and dear to my heart because of that. So how do you feel about the film? Be sure to let me know. If you enjoyed this discussion, you enjoyed this review, be sure to hit like, comment, and just subscribe so you catch all the other videos coming your way on the road to Halloween Kills. Cannot wait for that film. We are almost there, ladies and gentlemen. We got a lot more Halloween to talk about, and I cannot wait to do exactly that. But other than that, thanks for checking out the video. I hope you have a fantastic day. I'm Nate for Nightmare Flicks, and that's a wrap.